for Vince Mulfuni, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Tony. I'm not the winner, unfortunately. Before we get to the actual presentation, I think there's some people that need to be thanked. Obviously, Tony Tardio for doing the excellent job as the and as I keep saying, I never get tired of listening to his voice on the radio. And if anyone is envious of it, I can understand. It's the best voice on radio that I've ever heard. I'd like to thank, obviously, the Honourable Nicola Garret for taking the time to attend tonight's dinner. Is, as you know, the Oceania representative for in the Chamber of Deputies in Italy, and coincidentally also happens to be Calabrese, another example of the contribution that members of our community have made. And obviously thank you to Assistant Commissioner Barrett and Sergeant David Farrugia for attending. Saliba. Where did I get Farrugia from? I went to school with a fellow called Charlie Farrugia. So maybe it's one of those seniors moments. So my apologies. And I've been calling you Farrugia all night. My apologies, David Saliba. And I must say, it is gratifying and it exemplifies the purpose of our association, because Assistant Commissioner Barrett and David Saliba are here because we had a meeting on the 24th as a consequence of our writing a letter in relation to a press conference that was called by the AFP back in July. And it just goes to show how communication is vital, and that putting one's position is absolutely essential to be understood. And that what's been missing as far as the Calabrese community is concerned, in my view, is precisely that, because people have accepted what I consider to be the negative stereotype of the Calabrese in Australia for so long that it actually comes as a surprise when people complain. But I'm happy to say that we were very well received by the Assistant Commissioner, and the presence here tonight is, I think, a testimony that there can be much better relations between our community and the Federal Police. And I, for one, intend to work as hard as I can to improve those relations. We also have the previous winner for last year, Dr. Teresa De Fazio, and again, thank you, Teresa, for the effort. And we also have a friend of mine who's anonymous at the moment, but I'll call him as Antonio Scarati, who's not here on an official capacity, but if you ever ring the consul, you might get his voice on the telephone. And lastly, but not least, obviously I want to thank every member of the board, from Pat Rocker, Vince Mirabelli, Joe Zaia, Leah Santalagia, Anthony Mirabelli, who's not here, and Filipina, and Leo, for Santalagia, if I've forgotten. Without the hard work that all of these people put in, this association would not exist. And in relation to this particular event, I want to pay special tribute and thanks to our Treasurer, Pat Rocker, who almost single-handedly organised the event. Thank you, Pat. Most importantly, I want to thank all of you here tonight who've taken the time to attend and join with us in celebrating the contribution that individuals of our community and our community collectively, I believe, has made to the Australian community. And obviously, the award, the Australian Calabrese of the Year, is designed to indicate to the broader community the positive contribution that our members have made. And The diversity of the contribution that our members have made is evidenced by the background of the people that have been awarded so far. And Tony has told you they were, but again, Anna Maria Rapia, who's the CEO of the Australian Academy of Science. So that's one field. Tony Rochesano, who's in the commercial field. Dr. Teresa De Fazio, who's an academic in, I think, diversity and linguistics, language and inclusion. And our winner, or our recipient for tonight, is a physicist. And she has one distinction which the others don't share, and that is that she's actually born in Calabria. She was born in Cosenza, and I'm told, yes, Vince, that's your home province, and acknowledge it. And there you go. There are many from Cosenza who've achieved greatly, including you. I'm told that as a child, she had ambitions of becoming a vet, but also her father was a doctor and her mother was a physicist, and her bedtime reading apparently consisted of reading the physics textbooks that her mother brought home and the anatomy textbooks that her father brought home. So you can see that she had some background in science. But nevertheless, her initial ambition was to be a vet, apparently, until her mother said, look, I don't think that you'd really enjoy seeing a cow calve. And apparently she heeded that, and she enrolled in Bologna University in astronomy. But she found that that wasn't really her calling, and so she switched to physics. And as I say, she hasn't looked back since. Since 2004, she has been a professor at the University of Melbourne in physics. And by the way, that again shows one of the problems that not only Calabria but Italy as a whole has, and that is the brain drain. That all of its best and finest find it necessary to move in order to progress up the academic or the business ladder that they want to do. But Italy and Calabria's loss is obviously Australia's gain. What she has been researching for many years apparently is dark matter. Now, don't ask me what dark matter is, but I'm told that it forms about 80% of the cosmos, and that dark matter is everywhere, much like a Calabrese. And although we can't see them, or we can't see the dark matter, but importantly, the research is being considered to be so important that the government built a essentially special purpose observatory in Stawell, about 1,000 metres below the surface in a disused gold mine, where the professor and her team are undertaking research into proving that dark matter actually exists, because part of the problem is that it's hard to see. In fact, it's meant to be invisible. And hopefully they'll succeed, and maybe in 2 or 3 years' time we'll be having a dinner celebrating the awarding of a Nobel Prize in relation to the discovery of the dark matter. But not only has the professor been involved in what might be called practical research, but her list of academic publications is so extensive that it literally doesn't bear repeating. So I'm sure that you will all agree that she's a very worthy winner of the Australian Calabrese of the Year Award for 2022. And I now call on Pat Rocker, who kindly has donated the actual commemorative plaque, to come up and award the plaque to our 2022 Calabrese of the Year, Professor Elisabetta Calabrese. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I know that she's very shy, but I'm sure that she'll say a few words if we insist. So, Edda.
Never ask a true Italian to get few words if you insist. Then you know what you're getting. So, I'm very delighted to have. Okay, that's okay. So, I'm very delighted about this prize. I was unexpected, but I really enjoyed. And since I'm Italian, good evening, buonasera, buonasera. So that's my 3 languages in reality. My mother was also from the north, so I had also another language. I'm bilingual according to Italian. So yes, I'm Calabrese, really born, what we say in Italy, nata, cresciuta e pasciuta, Calabria. So I speak Calabrese. I learned from my grandmother. And I've been, until I was 18 years old, until I went to the university, I've been grown up in Calabria. At the beginning, I was in San Giovanni in Fiore, that is one of the largest, well, you will call, but in Australia, city, we call village in Italy, because we have the largest city, in Sila Grande, so at about 1,000 kilometers over the sea level. And I've been there until I finished what we call the scuole medie, and then I did my high school, the superiori, and liceo scientifico at Cosenza. I'm very tied to my hometown, in particularly the Sila one. Less Cosenza. Sila for me has been a very, something that I really come from. I was a kid there. I grown up with a lot of tradition. So first of all, San Giovanni in Fiore. San Giovanni in Fiore is a very interesting town because it was founded in 1188 by the Abbey Gioacchino da Fiore. That it was one of the most important apocalyptic writer, religious writer of the Middle Age. And most of the, it's quite an interesting story because the Calabrian, and as in San Giovanni, they call him Beato, thinking that he's a saint. In reality, he's skirting kind of heretic, because the church didn't really like what he was doing. But he had a huge amount of notoriety during his life. So San Giovanni is born with a lot of notoriety. Even Richard, the Lionheart, met him. And influenced also all the part that came after, and that's why the Roman didn't like, his theology influenced all the shift from the Catholic Church that came after with the Church of England and other kind of church. So it's quite an interesting and famous place from the point of view of knowledge. It's also a place that was born and grown up in Calabria, you learn how much the Greek culture, Calabria didn't speak Latin. We spoke Greek until we start speaking the Volgare, so means Italian. We never spoke Latin. And you can see how the Greek culture is, embedded. My language, my culture, my dialect has a lot of Greek. We say grasta to say the pot, and this is exactly what the ancient Greeks say. So there is a lot of ancient Greek. There are even part of Calabria called Grecanica, where people still speak a dialect that is the ancient Greek dialect. And we see in every day, so we don't use sugar. The traditional cake in Calabria don't use sugar, they use honey. That's what I was born. I never used sugar, we used honey. Sugar was a way that when you go and visit someone, you would bring a packet of sugar and a packet of coffee. I don't know if you know this from when your parents were here, but this is how I grown up. Obviously, being in a country on a mountain, Christmas was when you killed the pig, and I really loved the pig blood. That in Italy is not salty, but it's sugary, so you put cinnamon and sugar, and you needed to hide this, otherwise I wouldn't eat everything. I really loved it. We call it sanguinaccio. And I loved the ham as made in Calabria, that is more similar to what we call now the Spanish ham, it was Calabria. And one thing that is called bushulu in my thing, that means the part here, that you roast on the part. Being growing up, another tradition that I loved is that Christmas time, Christmas evening, all people in the village were gathering in the neighborhood. We're a relatively large city, small city with neighborhood, and we were collecting the week before the wood, so we do a big fire, waiting for baby Jesus to be born. In reality, this is a tradition of the Romans to wait for the solstice, to wait the sun to come back. And it is still, if you go there in San Giovanni in Fiore for Christmas time, you see what we call the focera. The focera is this big fire that you have in that period. So this was like really a grown-up. A grown-up is like kids, street kids in Italy, you know, in that village you can walk on the street. And all our friends, we were walking on the streets where everybody had the door open. All the doors were open. You could enter in any house you wanted. It was really all open. They had this kind of door that it was two sides. There was the lower side. When there was the lower side, you can enter. When there was the closed side, it was closed. But we were really grown all together. And then I moved to Cosenza. It was a little bit of shock for me because it was a city. You could not stay in the countryside. You could not go and go to the other people's house. You needed to knock and take an appointment. It's a little bit cold, but it was still very close to, it was still Calabria. And then I moved to Bologna to do my university. I did my university, then I decided, more not because there was possibility, but because I really liked to move, to go to Geneva. And I did my PhD between Geneva and Germany. Then I did 3 years in my postdoc in Israel. Then I came back to CERN, and then I came back here. Mainly because I really like adventure. I think one thing that I need to say about Calabria, and especially my village, San Giovanni in Fiore, that there is a lot of people that had a lot of career. There are people that are financiers, so there is this guy, Nicoletti, that he went to France and he became quite an important guy in the bank of the French bank, and then became a financier. And when he was doing his birthday at in Paris at the Ritz Club, I met the Hermes and various ambassadors. That's, you know, like this is one Calabrese. There are another guy that owned Alto Palo Alto, so in California. And there is a lot of people that a lot, you know, many of vice chancellor in Italy coming from San Giovanni in that area. And I think what really made these people so successful is the really Calabrese traits that I recognize in myself. It's being very determined. They say testa dura. So we really, when we get something in our head, we push for it, and we never get really down. We have a very strong personality. We don't get really pushed around very easily. And we are very resilient. Really, really resilient. And I say, like, all over the world, and over I go, there is always very successful collaboration. Most of the people from Cosenza emigrate mainly in Canada, and the United States, and in Switzerland. Less in, I think we are much more a rare breed here in Australia. And Calabria is a place of immigrants. When I was a kid, I was the only one that had parents there, because my father was a doctor and my mother was a teacher, because all the other kids and the parents are outside, either in France, in Switzerland, in Germany, in America, because that's what it was. And people were coming for Christmas. So that's when I arrived here, I decided that I want to pursue dark matter. And since I'm a Calabrese, testa dura, I kept pursuing and pushing, and I don't know how. And the partnership with Italy back, with the NFN. And yeah, well, I managed to unlock the money from the state government, regional Victoria, and the federal government to get filled with underground lab. And now I'm pushing the Australian Research Council to finalize the money to build the experiment. And I think you need to know also that I was the first woman and the first non-Australian to be to win an ARC, Australian Research Council Centre of Excellence for research, and I was a non-Australian with an accent, you can see with an accent, and I was a woman. So this is also Calabrese, you know, like the Australian Research Council was very proud of a non-Australian, non-Anglo, sorry, not non-Australian, non-Anglo, and woman winning that. So I think exactly
Thank you very much, and congratulations again. And I owe an apology, I think, to Jose and the Nestor. So I may have omitted to mention that obviously they're on the board, but clearly senility is advancing at a fast rate. If that's the case, and if I have, I apologise. But the main course is about to be served, and after the main course, I will ask Nicola Cadet to say a few words if he chooses to. Thank you.
Thank you.